Howdy folks, this is Jonah from the BlueberrySupreme YouTube channel, and welcome to part 1 of the hunting adventures in the Sam Houston National Forest. Two fraternity brothers and I embarked on a 2.5-day adventure to go on a legit primitive camp and hunt in the National Forest. None of us had hunted before, and after a copious research using books, websites, forums, and a particularly helpful Sam Houston National Forest Facebook group, we prepped our bags, loaded the guns, and packed some snacks for that 2.5-day trek through the forest. Our objective was to each bag one hog to bring home for consumption. We knew this hunt was going to be difficult for a number of reasons. Number one, none of us had ever hunted before. Number two, it was going to be a hot and humid June weekend. Texas summers are notoriously brutal, and we were looking at 85 to 95 degrees with 45% humidity and up. Number three, we didn't know exactly what we had in store for us. After all of that research, all of that reading, we still knew that there could be very aggressive hog, venomous snakes, unforeseen circumstances that could make this hunt easier or harder, you name it. But that's exactly what made this kind of adventure that much more fun. A lot of the gear that I brought on this particular hike and hunt were purchased from Amazon, and after my 2.5-day experience with them, I'm very confident that I'll be using them again in the future, and those particular items, 5 in particular, will be added in the description below. But to run through them quickly, these are my recommendations for folks who are looking for hiking and hunting gear. Number 1, my 40-liter mountaintop backpack. Number 2, my Thermarest sitting pad. Number 3, my Columbia Royce Peak 2 pants. Number 4, the Vaporware Mossio Collection UPF long sleeve camo top. And number 5, the Forever Last Snake Gaiters. In the future, I will come out with particular short and informative reviews for each one of these recommendations, but for the meantime, again, those items are in the description below. Without further ado, let's jump right into it for part 1 of hunting adventures in the Sam Houston National Forest. Alright, survival tape number 1. The beginning of our journey into the Sam Houston National Forest. I'm here with my fraternity brothers, Aaron and Steven. And if we don't come out of this alive, it was that bitch Carol Baskin. We decided to set out on a trail near Lake Snubbleville, which I'll refer to as the Long Haul. We spent about an hour and a half scouting via truck along the paved and unpaved roads in the western part of the forest. Ultimately, we decided on this trail because it was well maintained and partially covered in sand, which enabled quieter footsteps. Using the Onyx app, Steven marked out a 4-mile-long walk into the forest using this trail. Our goal in terms of walking this trail was to get in as deep as possible and search for signs of hog. In no time, we came across some hog signs, including this well-printed hoof. Steven sent up a puff of powder to detect the wind so that we knew where it was heading. As you could see from the powder, the wind was minimal. Soon after, we came across what appeared to be another hog sign. This seemed to be old rooting from at least a week or two ago. In addition, Aaron came across a trampled plant with fruit that appeared to be partially picked. Whether this was a hog or another animal was unclear. As we walked, we came to truly appreciate the fact that the Sam Houston National Forest is a vast and beautiful landscape with 100-foot tall pine and oak trees as far as the eye can see, which unfortunately isn't very far due to all the immensely tall trees and 3 to 6 foot brush. After 2 miles of old signs, we decided to turn around and try our luck at another site. We moved over to a new trail, which I'll refer to as Hotspot, and it was going to be an equally long walk deep into the forest. Our goal for this particular trail was to reach a creek bed where we could settle in for Pig 30. For those unfamiliar with Pig 30, that's the 30-minute window before sunrise and 30 minutes before sunset, where wild hogs become very active. Being animals without sweat glands, they needed cooler temperatures in order to get moving. This part of the forest was a little bit more dense, a little bit more difficult to navigate, with taller brush, more down trees, and a much thinner trail to walk through. I was really starting to feel the heat on this particular walk, and our previous long haul walk down that particular trail, it had been hot and the sun had been high, but for this one in particular, the humidity really clung in the air and onto our skin quite aggressively. Sweat was really starting to pour down my face as we started to make our way down further and further into the forest. We reached the creek bed that we had been searching for and began to discuss strategy. Steve and Aaron decided that if we moved a little bit further along for this particular creek and looked for an overhang, we might have a good spot for a hog sit. We did indeed go with that strategy, moving just a little further up the creek so that we could plop ourselves down in a triangle formation where we can keep our lanes of fire open while keeping an eye out for hog activity in the brush in front of us and to our sides. As if on cue at 8 p.m., we began to hear rustling in the brush directly in front of us and to our left. This was a critical juncture for us, and the mistake that we made was not to get up immediately when we heard the movement come within about 30 yards. If we had popped up, we may have gotten a visual and even a clear shot. Unfortunately, our critical mistake of not popping up when we heard the movement within 30 yards was the reason we walked away from this sit empty-handed. So, we turned around, headed back to the truck, and headed out to the hunter's camp to set up for the night. Despite our lack of success, we were still excited by the fact that we had a really good day. We now knew the signs, we now knew the strategy, we just had to wait for tomorrow.
Something buried.
Despite our best efforts to wake up for the sunrise Pig 30, we were not able to do so, but we were still excited for a full day of hiking, fishing, and hunting. Just before leaving our campsite, we did discover that about 20 yards away from our campsite was an area that we believe was bedded down by a couple of hogs. We're thinking that it's possible that hogs came through the night before and bedded down just a couple yards away from us. Despite smelling us, despite knowing we were there, they just didn't think we were a threat. To save our strength for Pig 30 in the evening, we decided to go fishing.
16. Something weird. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, shit. Oh, it's so stinky.
Not even moments after we set up our bait lines, we were able to catch our first fish of the day. Unfortunately, the camera wasn't rolling for this moment, but we did manage to capture a beautiful blue catfish about 12 inches long right here on Lake Stubbleville. Again, no video, but here's the picture. Around 2 o'clock, we broke for lunch over by Kelly's Pond, where we intended to fish a little bit more, but at this point the heat was really getting to us. After lunch, we set out on a third trail that we'll call the Twin Creeks. On this particular one, we were looking for an intersection of two creeks that was about a mile into the western half of the forest. Stephen and Aaron had scouted this particular location the week prior, and it showed a lot of promise. In particular, there was an entire area that was covered in what appeared to be hog bedding and hog trampling, and these signs, despite being old, showed that there was a vast number of hogs that had been through this area on more than one occasion. The tough part was that the humidity and the heat was really starting to get to us again. We were hitting midday, and we really needed some relief. Luckily, we were about to get some in the form of rain. Thank y'all for watching part 1 of Hunting Adventures in the Sam Houston National Forest. Thank y'all for stopping by, and please circle back next week. We will have part 2 available for your entertainment. For part 2, we are going to showcase how we did our absolute best to bag some hog. As mentioned earlier in the video, I do have gear recommendations for those who are watching this for the gear. Those 5 recommendations are in the description below. So that concludes part 1 of Hunting Adventures in the Sam Houston National Forest, and drop us a comment below. Let us know what you would have done differently, what you would have recommended in some of the situations that we were in to help maximize our hunt. Do you have any recommendations for any gear? We welcome all of that in the comments below. Thank y'all for stopping by, and hopefully see you next week for part 2 of Hunting Adventures in the Sam Houston National Forest. This is Jonah with the BlueberrySupreme YouTube channel, and thank y'all again for stopping by.
Get your B-roll. Look into the distance. Act like you're thinking.
Jonah vlogging.
Shh, I'm vlogging.